So this is our statue, of course, so call it that. Change the color to green, which means this is the thing we're not going to render. Now we brought it in where it was by default. I'm going to say go to the top, so set view, top viewport, zoom in, and let's actually dive inside of it. I'm going to make a transform here. What I want to do is this is the head, right? I want the head to be right here at the origin. So I'm going to basically move it down like so. Could even like zoom in more if it makes it a little easier to see. Kind of hard to say, I guess, but something like that. I'm going to say again that we'll just round these out to easy to follow numbers. But the idea is that if this is the main axis here, and here's the main x-axis rather, and this is the main z-axis, I just want the head to be right in the middle. It'll make our lives a little bit easier later on. So I'll say out, like so. And there you go. We can come back into our camera now. And I'll press W to go back into full mode here. So we've got our statue. It's actually facing away from us right now. I'm going to say, let's rotate this until it's facing us. Let's rotate quite a bit, I guess. There we go. Still in wireframe mode. Let's do smooth shaded. There we go. I guess we're seeing the actual templating of it from clicking the other node. But anyway, I'm going to say something like that, just so she's kind of facing us. Doesn't really matter. Let me tweak a little bit. I say it doesn't really matter as I continue to tweak it endlessly. And let's change this to translate rotation and scale. That way we are actually moving it first and then rotating it in place. I still want to make sure that she's actually right on the middle here. Awesome. Nothing to do with volumes, everything to do with the cool aesthetics of this lesson. So the statue is definitely all set up now. Let's, for the first time, maybe in one of these lessons, let's move right on to rendering, if you can believe that. So make a geometry node here, make it red for rendering power. Object merge in that thing we just did to the out node here. Now we can turn this one off. Save it for some reason. We want to actually make a shader now. To go to material area here. Principled shader will be fine. We'll call it principled shader statue. We don't need to change anything about it yet, but let us apply it. So go to the render tab on the render statue and find that shader. And there you go. So now it's applied. And let's actually see it. Again, we're going to render it right now. Let's go to the out area. Make a mantra node. We'll do a frame range, which we're going to need to eventually. Let's override the camera resolution for now. You know, everything is going to take a little while to render, so let's do half resolution so it can render that much faster. And because I already know we're going to want these things later, and we've talked about them in previous lessons, go to extra image planes. So that's the images tab, which should be the default, and change it to extra image planes. You know, as we add lights and look at various properties of the shading, we want to render those as separate images at the same time as our main image. It'll help us debug things like lighting, and it'll definitely help us do compositing stuff later. Again, we've talked about this a lot in the previous lesson, volumes 5 especially, and also volumes 3, and maybe also 4, pretty much all the time. So what did I do here? I said extra image planes, 1. One of the image planes I want is the so-called direct lighting, which is just called direct. So change that to direct, as we did. And for light exports, change export variable for each light. What this means altogether is that when we're rendering, every light's main direct contribution will show up as a image plane in our render. So that's cool. Let's make another one of these things here, and we're going to want not indirect, but we're going to want direct emission. like so. This is going to be a property of the materials themselves. So we're going to be dealing with a lot of glowing because it's magic. So they emit their own light. At least as far as the render looks like, they'll just look bright as though they were emitting light. Now these have nothing to do with lights, so we don't need to worry about that, the light exports for that. So that's pretty much it. So let's see what we have so far. So I'm going to say render. Now I guess we were lucky. I disabled the regular statue geometry node already and only have the render one visible, but we should technically disable candidate objects here. And for force, let's force anything with render. So anyway, it looks the same. So here it is, our shining statue. It's shining. We don't have any lights because we have headlight creation on. If we turn headlight creation off, it'll probably just look pitch black now because there is no light. However, remember that emission business we were just talking about? So this is the shader on that thing, on that statue. So if we scroll down to emission color, say have it emit white. So now it's going to have its own light, pretty much. Just in case anyone cares, I'm going to turn off reflectivity to 0. And I'm going to say this is extra emission-y at 2. If you press I, you can see the values actually are 2 now. It's extra bright. Kind of looks the same to us here, but it could matter later on when volumes are covering it partially or for various compositing things. The point is, this statue is our magical being in the middle of this magic storm. And I want it to be real bright, and I want it to be emitting its own light. And furthermore, it should not be getting lit by anything. So if we go to this render thing here, and we see light mask, turn off. Get rid of the star. Nothing should light this. Technically, just an efficient thing to do. We don't want it to waste any time even trying to consider it for lighting. And that's it. We've successfully already started rendering things in our lesson.